Jake Gogatz.
Irina Huang.
Emmett Till.
His face, his mother, and his story.
Miss Till, I know you went through all the trouble getting the body from Mississippi to Chicago, but are you sure you want to see it?
You mean I spent all this money to get a body I can't even look at? I want to see my son.
But Miss Till...
Turn me loose. I don't have time to be fainting now. I want to see my son. His teeth. I took so much pride in his teeth. They were the prettiest things I'd seen in my life. Just two now. Guess they've been knocked out. And his ears, they were just like mine. Was it necessary to shoot him? On top of all that? They tell me my son whistled at a white woman in Mississippi. I let him go down there to visit his cousins and great uncle. I told him about the rules of the South, how blacks can't act the way they do in Chicago. But my little Bobo, he just didn't understand. The woman he whistled at, her husband and brother-in-law, came in the middle of the night to get Bobo, barged right in. 3 days later, my son was found with a cotton gin fan tied around his neck, weighed down in the Tallahatchie River. It would be easy to say, no, close the casket, I can't bear it. But when they ask me what kind of funeral I want for my son, I'm gonna make sure they open that casket. And when they ask me if I want Bobo's face fixed up, I'm gonna say no. Let the people see what I have seen. I can't tell his story without the world seeing what they did to my son. I want him to die a hero. Let the people see what I have seen.
On August 28, 1955, Roy Bryant and J.W. Milam murdered 14-year-old Emmett Till in cold blood after whistling at Bryant's wife. After Emmett's death, his mother, Mammy Till, and the media together forced blacks to confront and respond to the long-running issues of racial tensions in the South. Till's death was a major turning point for blacks, as many decisively rose up in action after learning of Emmett's story, sparking the civil rights movement.
Fourth and last day of trial. Emmett buried August 31st. Black and white reporters from all over our country present at trial. Yesterday, Moses Wright, Emmett's great uncle, testified against Emmett's white murderers before an all-white jury.
Excuse me, do you mind if I take a look at your notes?
I don't know, sir. The sheriff said black and white reporters ought not to speak to one another.
I'm going to be in the North next week. What's he going to do?
Well, all right. Where north are you from?
New York, you?
Right here in Sumner, Mississippi.
It's been crazy good last 2 weeks, hasn't it?
To put it lightly, last night all the more so.
Last night?
Well, I'm not really supposed to talk about it, but remember the surprise witnesses that were in court today?
Of course.
Last night, a group of us black reporters, along with some NAACP officials, white reporters, and even some police officers, went out for a witness search. We found more than just the 3 that were present at the trial today, but a couple of them ran away. They thought it was too dangerous to testify. In fact, before we even started our search, we had heard that some of Milam's Negro workers had already vanished. In many ways, they were right to run, but we needed them. Willie, who was here today, actually saw Emmett and Milam in Bryant's truck. He even heard them beat Emmett.
How did you get Willie and the others to testify?
We promised we'd send them to Chicago afterwards.
And you thought they would have an impact on the verdict?
Well, the verdict may have been decided long before the trial even began, but we still hoped. Either way, the witness accounts confirm for the public that Emmett was murdered by those men, even if the jury says otherwise, and that's what matters.
I heard the reason it took so long for the verdict to come back was because the jurors went out to get soda pop.
It's the stories like those that'll make this case memorable.
I can't say I'm surprised.
What's more is that no one actually knows what happened to Emmett that night. Well, other than Milam and Bryant. Even with the witness accounts, all we know is that white men made Emmett look the way he did in his open casket, and that's unforgivable.
But I do think there are glimpses of hope in this case. What's said to be the first black man to accuse a white man in Mississippi court, the attention this case is getting.
Exactly, and that's why I think it's a turning point. Even in the face of the horror of Emmett's death, blacks are taking a stand for justice. Mammy Till's courage is an example for everyone, and we have to be active in our fight for equality.
You're right. No Negro can look at Emmett's face and not feel indignation. No black parent can look at Emmett's face and not think, what if it was my son? Now it's in your face, it's personal, and you can't escape it.
As the media spread Emmett's story, citizens with widely varying opinions wrote into the federal government. Some criticized, while others praised the FBI's absence in the case. Mr. Hoover, there are more letters for you. Here's one from Europe. Another from New York.
I already have too many. Listen to this one. The world will regard America's sense of justice as a hollow mockery if the white men who brutally lynched young Emmett Till in Mississippi are not punished. There is as much justice in Mississippi as in communist Russia. This case legally falls under your jurisdiction and should be prosecuted in a federal court, as Emmett Till's civil rights were violated. Don't you love how anyone can throw around the word jurisdiction and sound like a lawyer? I don't know why the government bothers if this is the thanks we get.
Well, sir, listen to this. We are convinced that the brutal and savage lynching of Emmett Till in Mississippi is part of the lynch hysteria being whipped up in the South to impede the desegregation of the public school system as decreed by the Supreme Court. Therefore, we demand that you take the necessary steps to prosecute those responsible for this lynching, and to also prosecute those who are whipping up the lynch hysteria.
That's conspiracy talk. I can't have the FBI investigating rumors.
Even if the FBI shouldn't get involved, don't you think that this is the kind of outcry the NAACP needs?
It's not my job to keep tabs on what the NAACP needs. It's my job to keep them in check.
Regardless of what Hoover says, the publicity behind this lynching is significant. The black community won't get over it this time. The letters, the worldwide media coverage, the scrutiny coming from all over. Blacks are demanding that the federal government change its passive stance on civil rights. Blacks want to change the world for their children. They want to change the world for Emmett Till. Extra, extra. Emmett Till murder is acquitted after an hour of deliberation. Outcry across nation over racist trial.
Excuse me, do you have the last copy of Jet magazine?
Yes, sir, my last one in fact. Here you are.
Has it ever sold out before?
Oh, no, never. It's that Emmett Till murder everyone wants to read about.
I can't seem to get his face out of my head.
You read the article?
No, but I went to the funeral. Thousands of people lined up just to see his body. You walked up to his casket and you saw his battered face right underneath his last portrait. It made it real, you know? Women were fainting all over the place. They had to keep nurses at the scene.
It was that bad?
Haven't you seen the photo?
Of course. I can't imagine there's a single member of the black community who hasn't.
Exactly. No longer can the black community ignore the ugly reality facing this nation.
But for decades, the murders of innocent Southern black men have gone unpunished.
This is different. This is a child. This is in the media. This is a mother who isn't afraid to expose her son's story to us blacks who try to pretend we don't know what's going on in the South. We aren't used to the media feeding us such gruesome photos. Not even war photos are this graphic. But this makes me angry. This makes it real.
But how does it change anything?
It changes things for me. It changes things for every black person across this nation because we can't wait any longer. We have to end this now.
But how?
You and me, all African Americans, need to take a stand. It can't be passive legal change any longer. It can't be passive legal change any longer. We have to take a stance on this. It can't be passive legal change any longer. Brown v. Board was not a turning point for black people. In fact, it tricked some of us into believing that integration and change were right around the corner. But in reality, this shocked me out of that complacency that I fell into. This is our turning point.
And you think that this story has that much power?
It's not just a story, it's what came after. Did you think Mississippi was going to convict those men? Did you think the FBI was going to intervene? No. If we don't fight now, we have to expect complete and utter defeat.
You're right. And there's something about the story of this death itself that really resonates with me.
It's the innocence. Sure, maybe Emmett shouldn't have whistled, but in the end, goddammit, he made a mistake. Just think, for whistling, Emmett was put to death, and yet those two white men got away with murder. Too many people are going to realize they don't want it to be this way, and that they need to do whatever they can to change it.
September 1955, Martin Luther King states that the Till lynching might be considered one of the most brutal and inhuman crimes of the 20th century.
October 1st, 1955, 100,000 people across the U.S. marched in protest of Emmett Till's lynching.
Following Emmett's death and trial, tens of thousands of dollars are donated to help the NAACP. Membership soars.
Regarding her choice to stay seated, Rosa Parks said, "I thought about Emmett Till, and I could not go back. I paid the same fare as others, and I felt violated."
The night of Rosa Parks' arrest, the Women's Political Council circulates flyers defaming the Montgomery bus rules, asking that Negroes not ride the bus Monday. Martin Luther King Jr. leads what is usually recognized as the first event of the Civil Rights Movement.
As Mamie Till once said, 2 months ago, I had a nice apartment in Chicago. I had a job, I had a son. When something happened to a Negro in the South, I said, that's their business, not mine. Now I know how wrong I was. The death of my son has taught me that something that happens to any of us, anywhere in the world, had better be the business of us all.